those are all the headlines from the world of commodities, but it's July 7, World Chocolate Day, and as we celebrate this day, let's now put the spotlight on what makes this irresistible delight a global obsession. Chocolate isn't just a dessert, it's a global industry worth billions, creating livelihoods for millions of farmers, chocolatiers and retailers. We take you on a delicious journey exploring its booming industry, the challenges that are posed by soaring cocoa prices and the innovations shaping the future. Join us as we unwrap the story behind this beloved indulgence in our special report.
July 7th, the World Chocolate Day, a day to celebrate one of the world's most loved treats, a product equally loved by kids and adults. And it's big business. The global chocolate industry is worth over $130 billion. In India, rising incomes, changing tastes, and urbanization are fueling impressive growth. This is the inside story of the chocolate boom. Fortune Business Insights research suggests that the global chocolate market is projected to grow from $113 billion in 2023 to over $138 billion by 2030, a CAGR of around 3.4%. Back home, IMARC Group says the chocolate market in India was valued at around $2.4 billion in 2022 and is expected to grow at over 6 to 7% CAGR to cross $3.5 billion by 2028. Factors driving India's chocolate boom include urbanization, rising disposable incomes, premiumization trends, gifting culture, and growing youth demand. In fact, dark chocolate and premium segments are seeing double-digit growth. Mondelez, the company which makes the very famous Cadbury, has approximately 60% market share in India's chocolate market, while Ferrero, Nestle, Mars, Amul, and ITC Fabel compete in the premium space. Companies are also tapping health-conscious consumers with sugar-free, vegan, and dark chocolate products. But even as demand rises, chocolate makers are facing a bitter challenge: skyrocketing cocoa prices. The rally, driven by climate shocks, disease outbreaks, and aging trees in key producing countries like Ghana, Ivory Coast, which account for nearly 60% of the world's cocoa supply. Chocolate companies from Mondelez and Nestle to Hershey's have already raised prices to offset raw material costs. Surge in cocoa prices have also forced companies to shrink pack sizes. Shrinkflation, as we call it. India's per capita consumption of chocolate is still much lower than the world average. India's per capita consumption stands at 200 to 400 grams per year versus world average of 900 grams. But worldwide, we are seeing a shift from mass to premium chocolates. Consumers willing to pay more for dark, single origin and artisanal brands. Back home, India's domestic cocoa production is limited. India imports 60% of cocoa raw materials. But although India is a net importer of raw cocoa, it is also emerging as an exporter of finished chocolate products. Companies like Amul, ITC, and artisan brands ship chocolates to Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa. At the end of the day, chocolate is more than just a product. Rising demand, evolving tastes, and booming sales promise big business. After all, chocolate is not just a treat. It's a celebration. Celebration of history, culture, and the enduring power of a heavenly indulgence that brings people together.
And to discuss this in greater detail, we are now joined by Mr. Avinash Chandani, partner at Deloitte India. Mr. Chandani, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now. Since you track the sector very closely, if you can tell us how has the industry evolved over the last 10 to 15 odd years? How is India positioned versus the rest of the world? And what's the outlook going forward for the next few decades?
I think the outlook for the chocolate industry in India is fairly positive, right? So if you look at India's per capita consumption, like you also rightly pointed out, it's somewhere around 200 grams per capita. Now, if you compare this with other leading geographies in Asia itself, like Japan is about 2 kgs per capita, or the ones in the Europe continent are about anywhere between 5 to 10 kgs per capita. There is significant headroom for growth. But having said that, if you see India as a market has its own set of nuances, right? So we are a value driven market. Hence, any player operating in this industry needs to also customize themselves to the Indian taste and preferences, right? So India primarily is, you'll see a more preference towards sweet, but yes, the market is now tilting more towards dark chocolate. That's definitely growing way faster than the traditional sweeter, creamier varieties. So significant headroom for growth. Historically, while the market has been growing at about 6 to 7%, I think we believe that going forward, this would be growing anywhere between 8 to 10% over the next decade.
Okay, so you're expecting 8 to 10% growth for the next decade for the chocolate industry. But Mr. Chandani, let's also talk about raw material price volatility, especially cocoa prices. And although on a year-to-date basis, they've corrected a tad bit. If we look at the chart from the beginning of calendar year 2024, cocoa prices have risen nearly 125%. If you can
Correct.
help us understand, where do you see cocoa prices headed and how is it impacting margins of these chocolatiers?
No, so cocoa price definitely is a big cause of concern. While if you see this correctly, you've put that up there, right? It's now about 8,000 dollars per ton. But we are while we are seeing this likely to soften, but not that it's going to have any impact in the immediate 1 year. So this will take its time. It's not going to come back to the earlier levels, but definitely, there is, headroom to for further reduction. If you also see now, India, while large part of the cocoa that we use, right, our demand roughly is about 30,000 metric tons per annum, and more than half of this today is imported. But now gradually in India, in the southern states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, right, you're seeing a lot of cocoa cultivation. There are emergence of Indian brands who are leveraging this, and we are having single source, single origin chocolates that are getting more popular. Advent of D2C, and Indian brands are really gaining popularity. So we believe that definitely we will get, while continue to import, but the share can slowly come down over a period of time.
Understood. So that's as far as cocoa prices and India's trade is concerned. But I wanted to scratch that point further. India is a player in the global chocolate market, but not a significant player. How do
Yeah.
you see this trend evolving going forward? Will we be able to live up to the quality standards of the world? And will India be a global chocolate trader going forward in the global chocolate market?
So in today's India share of the global market is roughly about 1.5 to 2%, is what I believe. That this is what we have of the overall overall chocolate market globally. But having said that, definitely there is headroom for us to drive incremental growth through increasing consumption, as well as look at how we can have further penetration in the market, right? So both will play an important role. As disposable incomes increase, there's shifting preferences from traditional sweets to dark chocolates. Definitely there is headroom for growth. From an export perspective, yes, we have a very small share, but yes, this is again likely to go. But I don't see India becoming a significant exporter per se, because there is huge domestic demand itself, that we have to cater to. So there is enough and more opportunity here that the Indian market itself offers.
Understood. So there's a lot of opportunity for them in the domestic market, but also wanted your thoughts on the new generation, which now prefers healthier version of chocolates. You think these new chocolatiers will now have to focus on diet-friendly and healthier versions to probably live up to that growth that we have seen over the last few years?
Yes, they will. There is a lot of innovation actually that you see that's already happening, right? So you are having, lesser sweeter chocolates. You're using more dates, as a sweetening alternative, right? You are there are perceived health benefits of dark chocolates that are getting more aware or pronounced. You have the advent of e-commerce and quick commerce today, that is making helping build more awareness and also availability, right? Primarily chocolate, if you see, while it's more an indulgent category, looking at, at times that you look at eat chocolates for enhancing your mood or for rewarding yourself, right? So all this is, will definitely, drive consumption, in the, e-commerce, quick commerce channels, playing an important role in making this available to the consumers itself.
Understood. Mr. Chandani, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now on this chocolate day and helping us decode what the outlook is for the industry going forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
But shifting focus then, on the premium end of the chocolate market lies the specialty chocolate segment, which has been steadily growing in India. My colleague Anjali Palod caught up with Manali Khandelwal, director at Subko Cacao, to know more about Indian chocolate makers. Listen into that excerpt.
I'd categorize our market as somewhere in the premium segment, and I think that spans across multiple tiers as well. So tier 1, tier 2, anybody who has a bit of disposable income, at least for us in the premium segment, but definitely an emerging market and following along the trajectory of specialty coffee.
Right, next, I want to understand what subcategories within specialty chocolate are you seeing a lot of interest coming for?
So, firstly, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of curiosity on origins, on traceability. People are much more focused on ethical sourcing, on understanding where their chocolate is coming from, and focusing on less processed ingredients. So that's the first thing that I see as an emerging category. Secondly, chocolate is always giftable, so I do think that gifting as a category in general across all of the chocolate businesses is definitely something that will keep emerging and has been emerging for a long time. The third thing I would say is people are looking at health a lot more these days. So they're looking at darker chocolates, they're looking at alternative options to milk, to sugar, so they're looking for much less refined ingredients in there, maybe something along the lines of date chocolates or sugar-free chocolates, and maybe oat milk and vegan options. So there's a lot of focus on health as well.
So Manali, next I want to talk about chocolate as a commodity. Now we've seen it largely coming from West Africa, that was the dominant production belt, but of late there have been some issues related to supply. So how are you seeing this global supply chain sort of evolving?
So to be honest, West Africa is, and I believe it will continue to be, a dominant growing region. That being said, there's been a lot of evolution in the cacao industry overall in the last, say, year and a half, given the fact that we saw a massive shortage in cacao last year due to multiple reasons. There was a climate change impact that happened. There was disease that was rampant within the cacao trees in general in the plantations. There was a lot of issues with the trees reaching the end of their life cycle. So unfortunately, we had a lot of shortage of cacao. Due to that, there was a lot of impact on the way the economics of it worked, where the prices surged massively in the industry, going from somewhere around, say, 250, 300 per kg in the specialty market, all the way to upwards of 1,000 rupees per kg. So there was a very large impact that happened on prices for us, and therefore a lot of people shifted their attention towards Indian origins and other origins due to all of these shortages and these impacts. We're currently contributing somewhere around 0.5 to 1% of the global cacao production, and we have been steadily increasing over the last, say, decade or so. From what I understand, within the last 5 years, we've moved from somewhere around 25,000 metric tons to about 30,000 metric tons that we're producing. So there's approximately maybe a 15% increase that's happening steadily and gradually, and hopefully we'll see more of that.
That's the word coming in from some chocolatiers on what the outlook is for the industry going forward. But chocolate has captured our hearts and taste buds for centuries. From its ancient origins and rich history to the fascinating production process, let's now deep dive into some interesting facts, exploring its remarkable past, how it's made, and the curious trivia that makes it such a timeless favorite. Did you know chocolate was actually used as a currency in the past? Mayans and Aztecs used cocoa beans as money and also used cocoa beans as gift offerings. In fact, chocolate has health benefits too. The smell can help relax and reduce stress. Dark chocolate has multiple benefits, and chocolate also helps lower blood pressure and improve mood. The first ever chocolate bar was created in 1847. The largest chocolate bar weighed over 12,000 pounds, and the first chocolate factory was established way back in 1728. In fact, Switzerland has the highest per capita chocolate consumption. Reports suggest per capita chocolate consumption in India is just 100 to 200 grams per year, much lower than the world average of 900 grams. That's all the time we have. More news and updates coming up on the other side.